Με ιδιαίτερη χαρά, σας καλωσορίζω στην απόψινή μας εκδήλωση. Την περασμένη Άνοιξη, στην πρώτη συνεδρίαση του νέου Διοικητικού μας Συμβουλίου, αναζητούσαμε τρόπους να συνεισφέρουμε στην προσπάθεια επανάκαμψης της χώρας μας. Πριν καλά το καταλάβουμε, είμαστε σήμερα εδώ κοντά σας. Μία μικρή ομάδα ατόμων θέσαμε ως στόχο να φέρουμε πιο κοντά την κουλτούρα αλλά και την τεχνογνωσία του Stanford στην Ελλάδα, καθώς επίσης και την τεχνογνωσία, την καινοτομία της Silicon Valley. Όταν μπήκαμε βέβαια βαθύτερα στην ουσία της υπόθεσης, συνειδητοποιήσαμε ότι η μετάγγιση γνώσης, η μετάγγιση παραστάσεων, μάλλον θα έπρεπε να είναι αμφίδρομη. Πιστεύουμε ακράδαντα ότι η επιτυχής δημιουργία στην Ελλάδα μπορεί να επιτευχθεί εξαιρετικά μέσα από τη ζεύξη των δύο κόσμων, που οι Έλληνες απόφοιτοι του Stanford είχαμε την τιμή να γνωρίσουμε. Σήμερα, λοιπόν, φέρνουμε τους δύο αυτούς κόσμους, την Ελλάδα και το Stanford, λίγο πιο κοντά. Και ελπίζουμε το αποτέλεσμα να σας εμπνεύσει. Κατά κάποιο τρόπο, η σημερινή εκδήλωση είναι και αυτή ένα startup. Είχαμε ένα όραμα που θα επιχειρούσαμε να κάνουμε πραγματικότητα, να δημιουργήσουμε κάτι από το τίποτα. Δεν προσλάβαμε κάποια εταιρεία διοργάνωσης εκδηλώσεων. Βλέπετε, είναι χαλεπή η καιρή, όπως και για ένα startup που δεν έχει πρόσβαση σε κεφάλαια. Μια προσπάθεια, λοιπόν, χωρίς κεφάλαια. Μια προσπάθεια να πραγματοποιήσουμε μια εκδήλωση που να φέρει και άλλους κοντά μας. Προσπαθήσαμε να δημιουργήσουμε μια ομάδα και κυρίως να εμπνεύσουμε και άλλους να ακολουθήσουν. Ευχαριστούμε θερμά τους καλεσμένους μας που είστε σήμερα κοντά μας και αποφασίσατε να συνταχθείτε μαζί μας σε αυτή την προσπάθεια. Αλλά επίσης και την Εθνική Τράπεζα της Ελλάδος, τον ΟΤΕ, την Κοσμοτέ και την Ernst & Young, που ως άλλοι επενδυτές μας έδωσαν τη δυνατότητα υλοποίησης. Το βήμα, το in.gr, αλλά και η Black Cherry, μας παρήχαν την προβολή που κάθε startup θα επιδίωκε και είμαστε ευγνώμονες γι' αυτό. Έχοντας πλέον ολοκληρώσει τη διαδικασία και είμαστε πραγματικά ενθουσιασμένοι που είμαστε κοντά σας σήμερα, αντιληφθήκαμε ότι κάτι έλειπε από αυτή την προσπάθεια. Έλειπε η πρόσβαση σε τεχνογνωσία. Αυτή λοιπόν την τεχνογνωσία που εκ των πραγμάτων εμείς δεν δυνάμεθα να έχουμε στην οργανωτική δομή της σημερινής μας εκδήλωσης, ευελπιστούμε ότι θα σας την παρέχουν απλόχερα οι καλεσμένοι μας σήμερα. Πιστεύουμε ακράδαντα ότι η εμπειρία τους θα κάνει διαφορά στις δικές σας επιδιώξεις. Reality bites, λοιπόν, η πραγματικότητα δαγκώνει, σε μια άλλη μετάφραση, δόσεις, μπουκές πραγματικότητας. Γιατί είναι πολύ καλές οι ιδέες, αλλά ακόμη καλύτερο είναι να προσπαθούμε να τις υλοποιήσουμε. Και εκεί η πραγματικότητα είναι αμήλικτη. Εκεί χρειαζόμαστε πρόσβαση σε ανθρώπους με εμπειρία, σε ανθρώπους με παραστάσεις, που μπορούν να μας καθοδηγήσουν στα δύσκολα μονοπάτια που διαβαίνουμε. Ας αλλάξουμε κάτι, λοιπόν, στον κόσμο που ζούμε και ας υποσχεθούμε όλοι στον εαυτό μας σήμερα ότι από αύριο κιόλας θα μετουσιώσουμε την άβρα, την κουλτούρα του Stanford, ώστε να δημιουργήσουμε κάτι καινούριο. Εμείς με τη σειρά μας θα επιδιώξουμε στη σημερινή μας προσπάθεια να μην είναι διά των αστέρας και να συνεχίσουμε με αντίστοιχες πρωτοβουλίες και στο μέλλον με τη βοήθεια όλων σας. Σας ευχαριστούμε θερμά που είστε σήμερα εδώ και ελπίζουμε η εκδήλωση να φανεί αντάξια των προσδοκιών σας. Ευχαριστώ. Απολάμβανα το χειροκρότημα, οπότε θα μείνω στη σκηνή. Θα είναι ιδιαίτερη τιμή απόψε να φιλοξενήσουμε δύο καθηγητές εν ενεργεία του Stanford Graduate School of Business, τον Peter Zibelman και τον Jim Lattin. Jim, Peter, welcome. Thank you very much. Σας ευχαριστούμε θερμά που κάνετε το ταξίδι. Thank you for the trip. Το ταξίδι στη χώρα μας. Αναζητώντας λοιπόν λύση για το πώς θα καλωσόριζα τους καθηγητές, που είναι πηγή γνώσης και έμπνευσης για χιλιάδες αποφύτους παγκοσμίως, μεταξύ αυτών και εγώ, κατέληξα να μοιραστώ κάποιες ιστορίες από τη δική μου πορεία στο MBA. Θυμάμαι λοιπόν ακόμη τον συμφοιτητή μου, τον δευτεροετή συμφοιτητή μου, που μου είπε, αν σε ενδιαφέρει το marketing, αληθινή ιστορία, τότε οπωσδήποτε να πάρεις το μάθημα του Latin. Και πιστέψτε με, προσπάθησα, αλλά ήταν τόσο δημοφιλές που δεν υπήρχε θέση και για μένα. Ακόμη και σήμερα είναι το μοναδικό μάθημα που κρίνω ότι θα είχε αλλάξει την πορεία μου στις δικές μου επιδιώξεις του startup. Νιώθω πολλές φορές ότι στο marketing μαντεύω. Ποτέ δεν είναι αργά, λοιπόν, για να έχουμε όλοι μια μικρή δόση αυτού που εγώ απόλεσα, έστω και 10 χρόνια μετά. Κυρίες και κύριοι, ο Jim Lattin. Welcome, Jim.
All right, what a nice introduction. So I like to say, Christos, Efaristo. So what I would like to do with you this evening is bring you a little taste of Stanford. I thought that might be a nice thing to be able to do. And as you saw that beautiful picture of the Stanford campus, you've already had a little bit of a taste. I hope your appetite is whetted. In order for me to do that, though, I have to shed some of the constraints that have been imposed upon me here. Now, the first one is that I have spent 31 years teaching at Stanford, and it's a wonderful place, a very casual and laid-back place, and I want to tell you that at no time have I ever taught wearing a jacket. So the first thing that I'm going to do, get rid of this. This may wreak havoc with the videographers. I don't care. So the second thing is what I'm doing right now, and that is that I have never taught a class from behind a podium. I just can't do it. It's too restraining. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to have the freedom to block your view, walk in front of this, converse with the audience, and so on. Okay? So this is my plan. All right, so what kind of taste of Stanford am I bringing you? As Christos said, I am on the marketing faculty. I've been teaching marketing for 30 years at Stanford. About 10 years ago, I began to start teaching sales and sales management. And as I did, I spent a lot more time with the Center for Entrepreneurial Studies at Stanford. And I came in contact with students whose greatest ambition, I think, is to start their own companies. And they came to me for some insight into sales, but I continue to talk to them and try to understand what those challenges are that they face. And just a couple of years ago, I began on a journey to teach a new course, and the title of that course is right here, Customer Acquisition for New Ventures. And I want to give you a sense, first of all, of how it fits into the curriculum, and then maybe just give you a little sense of what it is we've covered in that class. So it turns out that Stanford has been teaching entrepreneurs, right, for a long time. As a matter of fact, we were a business school that was way out ahead of the curve in teaching entrepreneurship, right, for a long time. And it turns out that we've developed a lot of things that help students at a very early stage in the process. So that early stage of figuring out whether you've got a good idea and whether there's a market for it, right? We have a lot of courses to help you with that. So I didn't want to teach that same course. I wanted to teach something that would help the students at a different stage of that entrepreneurial process. And so my point here is I'm going to talk about customer acquisition, which is something that you do at a later stage of the process. And I wanted to share with you some of the insights and lessons from that class, from that course. So that's my plan. So I'd like to motivate the importance of customer acquisition for you. I know there are some venture capitalists in the room. I know that the person who shares the dais with me Peter Ziebelman is also a venture capitalist, but I figured I'd go to another one to get my quote here. So in terms of importance, this is a quote from Charlie O'Donnell, who writes a blog, and he says, if you're not focused on how you're going to acquire your customers, and more importantly, at what cost, then it's going to be very hard to build a business, and even harder for us, by which he means venture capitalists, to assess whether or not you even have a business. So here's the thing. You're looking for support. You're looking for an investor. What the investor is going to want to have is proof positive that you are able to find potentially profitable customers at reasonable cost. If you can't demonstrate that as an entrepreneur, it's very hard to get to the next step. All right? So hopefully I've motivated the importance for you. Let's talk a little bit about things. Before I share these lessons, a couple of preliminary remarks. So first of all, as I've said here, this first stage of the startup process, I'm kind of skipping over. Customer acquisition should begin in earnest only after you are sure that you have achieved product market fit. I don't know whether you are all familiar with this term, but it is bandied back and forth in Silicon Valley. I have to tell you, there's nobody who hasn't heard about the importance of product market fit. What does it mean? It means as an entrepreneur, you have to do two things. One is that you have to validate the existence of a problem that you're going to solve. And two, you have to validate whether or not your product is seen by your target customer as something that will meet or address that problem, right? It's a highly iterative process as you go back and forth with a product that you hope will address a problem. You learn more about the problem, which feeds back into changes to the product. But that has to happen first. What I'm going to talk about happens after that stage. The second thing I'm going to talk about is to sort of address people's expectations about marketing. Often when you hear marketing, you think about, oh, marketers. Marketers are the guys who deal with brands and advertising. They're brand builders, they're advertisers, they're communicators. And so one of the things that I want to say here is that I think actually marketing in a startup is not so much about that as it is about delivering growth. Your marketing person in an entrepreneurial venture should be looking for scalable and sustainable ways of finding new customers, right? That's their responsibility. Often a startup doesn't have the resources to do a lot of advertising, to build brands, but you do have the insights that you need to find the customers that will deliver potential value. So that's two. And then the last thing I'll say, and this has sort of come out of the course, is that this is the framework that I use to help my students understand customer acquisition. And that is that most customer acquisition involves paying for access to prospects who've been curated by someone else, right? So I go to somebody else with a bunch of users or prospects or customers, and on some terms I negotiate with them for access to their customers. Now, if that's not entirely clear, let me give you a couple of examples. Let's have a little audience participation here. Raise your hand if you've ever searched for anything using Google. All right, and then how about this one? Raise your hand if you've ever clicked on an ad when you did a Google search. Right? Sometimes fewer hands go up, but the fact is, you should be familiar with this. Well, the fact is that all of you could be my potential customers. And so what I would like to do to Google, I go up to Google and say, could I have access, please, to some of those people who come to your search engine every day looking for whatever it is? And Google says, sure, here are the terms, right? Go out there and figure out what word you'd like to, that people are looking for, that you'd like access to. And we'll let you bid on it, right? You agree to pay us some money for that word. And if you bid enough, then we'll serve your ad to that person when they do their Google search. And maybe someone will click on it. If they do, you pay us based on the bid you put together. Otherwise, you don't have to pay anything. We just serve the ad. Nothing happens. We go on from here. Right? That's an example. A curated set of users and the terms, the economic terms in which you can do this. Right? Oh, we haven't come to Groupon quite yet. Right? So, second question here is Groupon. And I took a look, and I knew that Groupon is in Greece because I went and checked out some of the deals that were available. But Groupon is another example of a curated set of customers. So they run a mailing list to lots of people. And so what Groupon will come up to you and say is, you know what we'll do, here's what we'll do. You come up with a great promotional deal. We'd actually like that deal to be a price promotion that offers people a very large discount, sometimes 50% or more. And when you do that, we'll distribute it to our entire mailing list. And if somebody decides to buy the deal, here are the terms. We take half of the revenues, not the profits, and you keep the rest, which means that you end up with about 25% of your list price. That's the Groupon deal. Second deal, they've got a huge set of people. They'll give you access under these terms. So why do I make this point to my students? Because there are circumstances under which each one of these deals is a terrible disaster. I have seen economic circumstances in which people pay for clicks that never turn into customers. They blow through a budget without ever seeing somebody who shows up on their web page and decides to buy their product. Same thing with Groupon. You can get all the wrong people who decide to buy your deal. It can be very unprofitable. So, customer acquisition, again, involves understanding all of these terms, figuring out where should we spend our money to get the best customers. Okay. So let's proceed to what I call 4 lessons. This is something I thought about for a little bit because in order to give you a taste of Stanford, I couldn't come here and teach my whole class. Plus, this whole economic model of doing it that way would probably not be a good one for Stanford. But I bring a lot of guest lecturers into my class from companies in Silicon Valley, and I have them speak about various topics. They share their insights and wisdom with the students, and I thought, what if I could sort of bring them here to you and distill those lessons, kind of share some of those lessons with you here. So I thought I would do that, and I will try to do that and leave enough time at the end so that if you guys have some questions, we can do a little bit of Q&A. Because that's what I would do in my class, too. I would be asking people, okay, so let's, what questions do you have? So I'm going to take you through 4 of my guest lecturers. I'll tell you a little bit about them. I'll tell you about what I think their message is and what are some of the implications. So the first is Alex Schultz. And Alex Schultz is at Facebook. Now, before he was at Facebook, he was at eBay. And eBay is one of the leaders in using online marketing and customer generation. But Alex has done a lot of this at Facebook. And he started when Facebook was a platform with a mere 50 million users. Now, for those of you who think that's a somewhat skewed version of a startup company, say, yeah, by the time you get to 50 million users, aren't you sort of an enterprise by then? I mean, kind of big. The fact is, though, that Alex has worked with Facebook as they've gone from 50 million to 1 billion users. So he has seen 20-fold growth take place in their user base. So I asked Alex to come and talk to the students, and one of the things that he wanted to talk about, he said, this is the most important message I can impart to you, and that is understanding incrementality. Now, incrementality, I wonder how that translates into Greek, by the way. It's one of those words that MBAs get a hold of, and then they sort of turn it into their own word, you know, sort of. But his point is, too many marketers think that what they do is fully incremental, which means I run a deal, I look at what changes take place, and I think everything I have just done is attributable to that deal. run an ad, see some change in sales, everything is attributable to that ad. And Alex said, that's a dangerous conclusion to jump to. So I thought I'd give you an example just to sort of think about this in the context of affiliate marketing. eBay uses affiliates all the time to drive traffic to their site. Imagine that eBay, for example, has got a lot of people who are selling tennis equipment on eBay. So what eBay needs to do is drive a lot of potential bidders to the site. So what they do is they go out to websites that are out there, and those websites that specialize in tennis knowledge and tennis information. And they give those people incentive to drive traffic to eBay's site. And if eBay makes a sale from one of those people who came from a tennis-related site, then that tennis-related site gets a little bit of a bonus, a commission, an incentive. So I thought I'd give you an example of a couple of different affiliates, and we could talk about these two. The first, affiliate number 1, right, delivers 80 customers to you per period. That might be per day, it might be per week, it might be per month. But per period of these, a whole bunch of them are making a purchase. Let's use $1 for the purchase just so we can keep the numbers simple. You pay the affiliate a commission of 10%. Everybody who shows up spends $1, they get a dime for that person. And so what you're doing is you're paying $4 to that affiliate to help bring in $40 in revenue for you. Right? That's affiliate number 1. Affiliate number 2, this affiliate's delivering you fewer customers. They seem to be more likely to make a purchase. 15 of them make a purchase for $1, but I'm paying this affiliate a higher commission. So I got to pay them 20% to deliver this traffic, and so I'm paying $3, but they're only delivering $15 in revenue. Now I ask the question here, which is the better affiliate? Who would you rather have? You're an entrepreneur, you're going to go with number 1 or number 2? Who wants 1? Lots of people want 1. Who want 2? How many think this is a trick question and you never raise your hand when a faculty member poses a question like this? All right, option 3 is correct. This is a trick question. So let's talk about a different kind of affiliate. Have you ever walked down the street in Athens and had somebody hand you a coupon for a meal at a restaurant? You do this all the time in New York City and San Francisco. It's running these promotions. Think of those guys as affiliates. Now I'm going to describe 2 affiliates to you. One affiliate stands right outside the door of the restaurant. And as people are going by, he's handing out those coupons, which means that he'll get paid if somebody goes in and uses that coupon to purchase a meal. You got another affiliate. Another affiliate works in an office building 3 blocks away. And he's going up and down stairs, leaving coupons with people in their offices saying, if you're thinking about going out to lunch today, you might want to come to this place for lunch. The difference is incrementality. You could argue that there's 0 incrementality to this affiliate. And in fact, online, a lot of marketing turns out to have very little incrementality to it, this sort of affiliate marketing that's performed. This is the person you want. But you can't figure that out just by tracking the numbers that I've given you. As an entrepreneur, you would have to say, what task am I asking my affiliate marketer to perform for me? I need terms that ensure that they deliver to me something that I couldn't already do myself. Right? The traffic that's walking by and thinking about coming into my store just as somebody gives them a promotion, you know what I'm doing? I'm paying $4 extra for no incremental sales. That's not a good deal at all. This might be a good deal. It's a pretty good return, actually, on a marketing investment. I would consider spending more money on this. All right. So this is the sort of example, and I would say, so what are the implications of something like this? And the idea of the trick question here is you really can't assess your return on marketing just by the numbers that I gave you. You need to know how well you would have done without it. What is that agent delivering to you in terms of effort? sometimes these sorts of things are called last-click attribution, which means the last marketing effort to touch that person before they make a choice gets all the credit. Let's put this in a context which is familiar to our participants right here. Christos went to Stanford, where his mentor became Peter Ziebelman. Peter was able to interact and give lots of advice. Well, what if the last person to give you some advice, Christos, before you launched your successful venture was Peter Ziebelman? Does he deserve 100% of the credit for all of your success? Because he was the last guy, right? The last thing. That's why this is imperfect and misleading, and why, as entrepreneurs, you have to figure out, what is it that I need to measure? The cooperation of all of my agents who are assisting me to sort of build this marketplace. So I would sort of leave you with that as some of the implications from the lessons that Alex Schultz would teach. What am I doing? So let's talk about another lesson, another person. This is Steve Dupree. Steve Dupree is, full disclaimer, full disclosure, one of my former students. Raise your hand if you're a person in this room who is one of my former students. Where are you? Here he is. All right, Nicholas Rallis over here. So he and I go back almost 30 years now, right? Okay. So Steve is a little bit more recent vintage. Steve is somebody, right, you sort of look at him here and you think, oh my God, you know, this kid looks like he's still in high school almost. Well, he's not, but the fact of the matter is that a lot of the stuff that he did, first at LogMeIn and then at SoFi, he's doing as an incredibly young man. So he is still in his late 20s and has got sort of a big career behind him. I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that he did in LogMeIn. LogMeIn was a company that allowed you to get access to your personal computer from any place remotely. It was a way of essentially negotiating to contact your machine. If you've ever been frustrated by the fact that you were somewhere else and at home on your PC you had a document you needed access to, LogMeIn was designed to solve that problem. All right, so what does Steve say? This was his lesson. It had to do with optimizing conversion. And he says you ought to discover and optimize campaigns around substeps that are relevant for your business. And then he says mid-funnel metrics matter. And this is one of those things you look at and you say, wow, there's a lot of, sort of jargon getting tossed around here. What do we mean optimizing conversion, and what are sub-steps, and what does a funnel have to do with any of this? So let me sort of elaborate on this for you. When we think about a customer funnel in customer acquisition, you're thinking about all of the marketing efforts that you make as you find a customer, bring them to your business or your site, and convince them to ultimately become a customer, to purchase and repurchase your product or service. And the reason it's a funnel is it's because it's shaped this way. And we start out with a lot of people, but we kind of lose some along the way, right? So what is Steve talking about when he's talking about all of this? He says, you know what? Some companies get too focused either at the top of the funnel